natives. Now my definition of natives may be different than some others. I'm not a purist because a lot of the natives they're ugly. Okay, so I like natives. The purists only use what's in their backyard. That's it. I kind of like to expand. I call them Western natives. So if they do well in the higher elevations of the Rockies, I'm all in. So it gives me some more options, and it allows me to use some new varieties that are being created or new colors that are created. So what I've got is I've curated a number of plants that are just bulletproof. They're just really hardy for the mountains of Arizona, this elevation. Now, it's not just Prescott, so all my Chino folks will go, well, what about me? I live in Chino Valley, all the Prescott Valley. Oh, what about me in Prescott Valley? What about, if you're between 4,000 and 6,000 foot level, this advice applies. The plants are going to do well for you as well. So with that being said, we can expand that open and get rid of some of those questions, okay? So what I want to cover right now is the seasonality. You need to rotate your colors. Right now we're going into the fall season. You're seeing that first indication of fall color. So the sumacs, so just the very top edge is starting to show some color. Burning bush is starting, just there. In another 2 weeks it'll be glorious. We'll be in all of fall, all of autumn. Of course this week, I think the fall equinox is on Thursday at 7:21 a.m. to be exact. That's where the day is equal to the night, equal parts. So it's the same amount of day as there is night, okay? That ignites all the autumn color. That just kind of, as the days get shorter, all the colors go off, and the coolness is starting to happen. You feel that in the morning, real late at night, kind of has this nip in the freshness to the air. Kind of feels good, especially after all that heat of June and July, all the rain. We're past all that. Now it gets to probably our best season. It's also a great time to plant because the soils are very moist, the days are warm, the evening is cool, and so your transplant shock is virtually gone. And so you'll find your success rate will go up as you plant in the fall. Now through, I would say, probably Thanksgiving, probably an ideal window. It's just a peak time, especially for your bigger plant material. Spruce, pine, your big shade trees. This is probably the ideal time to be planting. A little word of advice though. If you're gonna plant now, I'm in a room full of gardeners. I mean, you're here in the fall and you're still thinking about gardening. That says something about you, okay? That's a definition of a gardener. If you were here in the spring, let's say April, okay, it wouldn't be as hardcore. You guys, look around you, you're all hardcore gardeners. That's what you are. If you're gonna garden in the fall, make sure that you're gonna water through winter. You're not in the Midwest anymore. You're not in the Northwest anymore. We're in the Southwest where we can have some serious dry spells. I've seen it. I've been snowmobiling on Thanksgiving weekend, just a mile from here. There was that much moisture. And then I've seen it go bone dry from now through the end of the year and not one drop. We're into extremes. So if you're gonna water now, you need to make sure that you hydrate those plants right through winter, at least twice a month, okay? Just sporadically, go out with a hand water, turn your drip system on manually, just twice a month. And that's enough to keep them healthy, keep them going. So that's the only word of advice I get you. You're gonna hear word in November. You can have all your gardeners, your landscapers, all the announcements will be disconnect all drip irrigation. We no longer need that. Don't listen. You can disconnect the irrigation, just make sure you're watering, keeping, especially the new things, hydrated. Because we don't truly cool down and shut down. The plants never shut down here because it's so mild. It's just the ground never freezes. It's always thawed. And so the plants will still use moisture, especially those things that are evergreens. Red tip cotinia, your spruce and pine, they're really going to be sensitive. So they'll need to have a supplemental watering. And the key time is going to be when you hear the weatherman saying, oh my goodness, it's going to be a cold one. It's coming down from the northwest. Oh, it's going to be cold. People hit the grocery stores, they buy everything, and they hunker down for 3-inch snow. It's crazy to watch. If you see it's going to be really cold, make sure you water your plants before the storm gets here. A hydrated plant keeps that antifreeze within the structure of that plant flowing. A dry plant can't push all the antifreeze around, and that's when you see the damage of some of your plants. That goes for your natives as well as your ornamentals, both. Doesn't matter. So gardener, just be aware of that, okay? That'll really up your game immediately, just with that bit of advice. Yeah?
So how do you keep your system drained when it's really cold?
So she says she keeps her system drained when it's really cold. I don't. Or I manually turn it on, or I'll water it by hand. You decide what's best for you to water your landscape. So it depends on what kind of contractor, how they put that irrigation in. The big thing is going to be that backflow preventer. Some of you have that great big wort sitting in the yard, comes up like this, and covered it with a grotesque bag. Okay, that's the part that'll freeze. It gets really expensive to replace, so watch that one. Don't let that freeze. Other than that, everything's underground, you're fine. But I got a whole class on irrigation. I don't want to go there. I want to go on natives. Okay, let's get back onto focus. So, native plants. Now, all of these plants can, once rooted, go on their own. We're going to go down the line. I've kind of put together some samples of things that look good together. Okay, or you can put it on your drip system, and then you can really crank back on the irrigation once they're rooted. Now, you get a plant like this. This is called a gopher plant. Isn't that neat? That screams of Arizona, doesn't it? Look at that. That is like, or gopher perch. They say plant one of these in your yard and the gophers will go away. Does not do that. Okay, the gopher won't eat right here at the roots, but they're not going to repel underground rodents from your gardens. So, but it is really neat. It's evergreen, it's a perennial, that's year after year, and once it's rooted, it can go by itself. Beautiful yellow flower to it. But what you need to do at first, you need to get the roots from here to the surrounding soil. That can take up to 2 seasons, 2 growing seasons. So you put it in now, it's going to flush a whole set of new growth next spring. And then technically, you'd want to keep it on the irrigation, really pamper it, until the second spring. Then you can start cranking it back and cutting back the irrigation. Man, that is a workout. My goodness, it's like 15 pounds. But gopher perch is a great plant and it screams. I'm from the Southwest and I love growing here. And so also you'll notice the blue color. Blue is kind of an Arizona color. Blue is a secretion the plant covers the foliage with. So it does 2 things. It makes them more drought hardy. And secondly, it makes it just javelina, deer, rabbits don't like to eat things that are blue. I don't know why. Partly too, you'll see this leaf I cut off. You'll see that white sap coming out. I don't know if you guys can see that too, that white sap. That is actually, it makes the plant taste bad. So plants don't like to eat this. It's kind of like a poinsettia kind of thing. So watch that. The point being, don't plant a native plant in the ground and expect it to live and go on its own while you travel the Panama Canal for 5 weeks. That is not going to happen. The plant cannot go by itself. It has been trained, this big old plant. It's a yucca. You know it's going to do well here, but the roots are just too small yet. You've got to train your plants to root into the surrounding soil before it can go on its own. It's a big mistake I find newbies make. They just plant around, it's a native, it'll be fine. Well, it may not be fine. It may need your help to get it rooted and get it started. So it's a baby plant. Get it up and make it grow. This happens to be a golden sword. It's a beautiful yucca. Most of our yuccas that grow wild are blue. Sometimes you can mix in some of these golds, greens, and just add some character to it. This looks really great in a pot. By the front door, if you have that Santa Fe Mediterranean courtyard kind of thing, this just looks really good. It does get a flower, white flower, but you're really planting it for this great color. Okay.
Okay, how big does the gopher plant get?
That's full. So how big? How big does a gopher plant get? This is fully mature. This is a really mature one. I've got smaller ones. Actually, I don't know what sizes I have. These just came in. I went, I'm having a class. I gotta show this off. So it'll get wider, bigger. It'll kind of spread, but this is as tall as it will get. It will get a little flower that'll hover over it. It's yellow. The actual plant will only be this big. Okay, here's the other thing. These you poor folks that live out the 69 corridor, that's Yavapai Hills, the ranch, all the way up Cordes Junction. You guys have heavy clay soil. It's like everything that could be thrown at you, it was thrown at you. Caliche layers, rocks, I mean just heavy clay. The kind of clay when it gets wet, you walk in the yard, you start to elevate as the clay sticks like glue to the bottom of you. That's what you have, okay? Plants do not like growing in that, especially these plants. These are really, really sensitive plants. If you're going to kill any one of these I'm going to mention, it's going to be from over-watering, so don't over-water them. Make sure you're controlling yourself. You all are gardeners. You're tuned in. You're here in the fall taking a garden class. That means you're generous people. You're gardeners. And some of you, your hobby is not gardening, it's watering. So if you have that hobby, you're going to kill each one of these plants. Okay, so be careful. You would have to control it. You have to mentally not be as generous with these guys because they'll die if you get them too much water. In fact, I just lost my gopher plant. Been in for years because I'm rain harvesting. I took the gutters, I'm passive rain harvesting, and I took the water and I'm floating it underneath the ground through all the garden so I'm front load my soil so it stays moist. Well, I had planted this gopher plant too close to one of those rain harvest pipes, and it wasn't happy. It melted. It turned black and just fell over and died because I overwatered it. So I didn't have it on any irrigation. It's been growing there for years, but because this season is so wet, it was too much for that native plant. It was just too much, and that's what you'll have to watch. Okay, for you folks out that 69 corridor, may I suggest, or anyone with heavy clay soil, plant those plants on a very slight mound. It'll really make a difference, okay? Mind if I borrow this chair from you guys? Seems like you're kind of crowded, although you're using that as an armrest, but let's say what's really tough, this rosemary. Now rosemary is technically not a native, but it sure acts like it. That's where I kind of vary my definition. So I have some of this ground cover rosemary in my own gardens because it's an evergreen. I can use it in the kitchen. It is edible. It's a pollinator. The bees come in when the fruit trees are starting to pollinate. That blue color, this thing's in bloom in March, April. And then it goes back into bloom in the fall. So it's 2 bloom cycles. It's fragrant. And it's everything I want. And it's drought hardy. Very, very low care. It takes that really hot space. Not technically a native, but I treat it as such. So anyway, this gets watered in my own yard about once a week, maybe every 10 days right now. I've cut it back. Through the winter, every couple times a month, that's all it gets cared. And it's happy as can be. With this one, what I did is, because I have heavy clay soil and my house is on a northern slope, overlooking the granite dells, beautiful vistas, it's gorgeous, but it's some of the hardest gardening I've ever done because it's north slope, so the water gets on there and then it doesn't dry out. And then I'm up in the Eagle Ridge area where it's just heavy clay soil. And so I've got clay on a north slope. That's going to be more of a challenge for these native plants. Yet in my backyard, I wanted really low care. I mean, it's glorious, it's gorgeous, it's pretty, it looks lush, but I don't want the heavy care that a garden brings. So I did that with natives. This guy, what I did is, I planted this in a very slight, now this probably is not a great example. So here, you can see this root better. Here I would leave 2-3 inches of the soil, of the root, out of the ground. Just plant it shallow. Okay, just plant it like that. And then mound the soil up to cover that root ball. So it's on a very slight mound. You're the only one that'll ever see that. No one else will. Then I put my dripping bitter on top of that until I can get it rooted out. What that does for me is during a really wet cycle. We have 2 distinct wet cycles here in the mountains of Arizona. We just came out of one, typically August, September, July, somewhere in that window, that peak of summer, we get this monsoon rain. And it's a marked increase in the number of inches of rain. And then again, in the month of March, there's another spike where you see a lot of rain. And not rain so much, it's a really heavy, thick snow that sits on top of the soil, and then it melts, it doesn't quite melt enough, and it's cold, and that cold wet tends to rot the roots of the plants. So it's root rot is what we're trying to fight, especially on these natives. So if you leave a little bit of the root out of the ground and plant things on a slight mound, it's a game changer. It will really make a difference in these native plants. And here's why. It's as though we put you into a pool of water, swimming pool, and we have you underneath the water. It's raining through the whole month of July, and we don't allow you to come up for about a month. How are you going to fare if that happens? You're going to be dead. And so will your plants. If you fill up all those air pockets with water molecules, you will get what we call root rot. And so these are really sensitive to root rot. Just watch that one, especially if you have really heavy clay soil. It's changed my gardens with that one technique. It really made a difference, okay? This happens to be one of my favorite sumacs. Anytime you hear the word sumac, you know it's a good plant for here. This is not poison sumac. This is ornamental sumac. This is called tiger eye because it's the color of a tiger's eye. I plant this at the front edge of my pond. I've got a fairly extensive pond. And what this does, this is almost mature. It'll get up about this tall, just about knee high. And then it spreads, and it's a great light color against the dark water of my ponds. I want something bright, kind of something that looked sort of palm-like, but didn't get too big. And so this one's got very interesting bark. You should look at that after the class. It's got kind of like a deer's horn, that fuzz that's on there. It's got that. And so, it's one of the first guys to turn color in the fall of the year. So it's already starting to have that leading edge. But this is its natural color without the red, just gold. That's going to be its natural color through the season. But super hardy plant. This one I would say water for 1 year, and you can cut that irrigation right off, and it will still do just fine. Very, very happy plant for the mountains of Arizona. Isn't that pretty though? Almost looks like a fern. And animals don't eat sumac. No animals. No rabbits, no javelina, no... Now, would a javelina come in and dig it up just to see... Whoops, that was convenient. Just to see what's underneath the roots? Sometimes javelina will not eat the plant. They're just curious. They're mischievous. They just want to see what you're made of. You really got the gumption to garden in Arizona. So they'll put it off the side going, hey, are there any worms and grubs down there? And then you put it back in the ground, cover it up, get it anyway. That's stupid javelina. They're my nemesis. This fence around the garden center, it's not to keep people out. It's to keep the javelina. I got a pack of them that runs the street in the evening. Deer come out of the national forest right here, come down and look to eat all the aspens and the apples, because that's what the mess. Okay, so we've covered. Let's cover planting technique, how to plant, and then we'll go down the plant list. Sound okay? So how do you put a plant in the ground in the mountains of Arizona? But more importantly, how do you put a native in? This is really going to make a difference for natives. Now, you'll hear some people say, well, it's a native. Force it to get used to the native soil. Just put it right in the native soil. Don't do anything to it. Don't listen to those people. Yes, maybe if you're out in the forest where there's a little bit of topsoil, that might work. But guaranteed, where that contractor came in with your backhoe and just scraped off every living thing off your ground and put your footers in, your driveways, and now you're going to take that non-native soil. This is muck and mire that's underneath the native topsoil. You're going to throw that plant in that ground and expect it to go? It's not going to happen. Okay? And some of you don't have soil. You have boulders and rocks and contractor debris that was buried in your yard and caliche, just all kinds of funky, weird stuff. So you'll need to be more purposeful when you plant here. You're not in the southeast anymore. I could chuck my hat on the ground, it would grow in Georgia. In California, in any other place really. But here, that's not the case. You need to be more accurate here. There's less room for errors, okay? So here's how you do it. Let's just take this. This is a golden bar grass. Can you see that? Look at that. It's got bars going right across the edge right there. Isn't that pretty? Grasses do really, really well in the high country. Of course, our native bear grass, I think I brought one of those, we'll get to it. All the yuccas kind of have that grass look. This one just has that bar going across. It does very, very well. It's about this tall or so, and just consistent. You just know you can count on it. And it adds motion, the wind gets a little bloom, it has everything you want. Here's how you plant. Any one of these, from the trees, to the biggest trees, to the smallest of perennials, here's how you plant. So the hole only has to go as deep as the bucket. Don't go deeper. This is hard for my retired contractors, guys that love tools, backhoes, some of you actually own equipment where you're digging a hole down to China. Don't do that. There's nothing down there for the plant to go after, other than more rock, more caliche, more just muck and mire. The roots are going to be just underneath the surface. They're not going to go down, they're going to run sideways. So this cottonwood, this huge cottonwood in the middle of this nursery, it has roots literally hundreds of feet in every direction. We find the roots over there, it's a mess. So it lifts stuff, it's starting to lift the foundation of the greenhouse. It just has roots everywhere. And the water table's at 10 feet right here. So we're on the water table, and still it's got roots that go sideways. It's not going down, they're going sideways. Trust me, they go sideways. If you know that's how the roots are going to grow anyway, go ahead and encourage the roots to grow that way. And so what we do is we add a bucket on either side, and we dig it round. So you 3 times the width, same depth. General rule, that's how you do it. Okay. Now, all that soil you have on the side of out of your hole, some of you are not going to have any soil, just a bunch of boulders and rocks, and you're going to have to screen some of that soil out. Anything bigger than a golf ball, get rid of it. Roots, rocks, anything funky, just screen that out. We want to be left with things that are less chunky. So golf ball size and smaller, that's what we want. Okay? From there, we want to add some organics back into the soil so that, again, that topsoil was scraped off when they built your house. You're going to have to add some organics back into that soil to encourage microbial worms and fungi and stuff to create the livability of that soil. It feeds off the organics. Add some organics back into the soil. So we want 25% mulch to our native soil, or 1 scoop of mulch to 3 scoops of native soil. Does that make sense? Blend that all together. Okay, then we're going to use that to backfill around this root ball. Okay? Backfill around the roots, pack it down. We don't want any air pockets. And then water it in. I always add myself. I'll sprinkle some of the all-purpose plant food on top after I'm all done, because there is nothing redeeming about your soil. There's no food in your soil. We don't have 8 foot of topsoil where we can go for 3 years and never fertilize, and still there's enough stuff in my soil that it keeps going. What you'll find is you fertilize a little more here because there isn't any naturally occurring organics. There's no leaf molds, there's just nothing there to really, what we did is we covered it off with rock. So we've encased the entire yard so no organics can ever enter my yard. Not only that, we have gardeners that come in and blow off every single living organic piece, so we keep it perfect. It's almost a feng shui Japanese garden. We should have rake marks going through our rock yard. It's that. What you'll find is if you have that, we're going to need to fertilize more often because the plant's more dependent on you because nature is not helping them. They're going to be dependent on you. So I'll sprinkle some of this on new plantings. That'll get it going for the first 3 months or so. And then I water it in at the very end. In fact, I usually have this pre-mixed before I even start planting. I'll fill up my watering can with this root and grow. It's a rooting hormone that encourages the new root hairs to start forming into the surrounding soil. Do those things: mulch, food, root and grow. Every time you plant on a very slight mound, you're going to have great success. Okay? Questions on how to plant? We just covered it. Oh, good. I was that good. Gosh, I'm such a good teacher. That's great.
No.
Yeah.
Soil activator?
Okay, soil activator, question mark. Soil activator, what that is, now I just wrote about that a couple of weeks ago, and I said if your plants are stressed out, if they're turning color early, if the maples in your yard, the apples, if they're turning fall color way before anything else in the landscape, in the neighborhood, and in the yard, in that part in the city, that's saying that it is stressed out. I'm going to check out. I'm going to put myself to bed early. I'm going to drop my leaves. I want winter to come now because I just feel sick. If you have plants that are stressed out, leaves that are scorched, leaves that are marked, they're just being eaten alive by disease, use soil activator. Usually I only tell people to use soil activator 2 times. In the summer, when plants are stressed out, I know we need to encourage new roots. When vermins are eating the roots off, either grubs or gophers, or in the spring when I'm planting a lot of new seedlings. Soil activator encourages root growth. It feeds the soils and plants go, oh, this soil's alive, something's going on, I want to root here. So it encourages deeper roots. For plants that are stressed out, that's important. For new plants, it can only help, could not hurt, but I think if you're doing all the steps I just gave you, mulch, food, root and grow, I think that's enough. I'll save you a step, okay? Yeah, good question.
There was something else that you have in there, so in the jar that, I think it was aqua soil something.
Yes, aqua soil. So aqua soil, did I bring that up here? Yeah, I did, look at that.
Oh, there you
Hey,
go.
you're baby. I'll give you your $20 bill afterwards.
Okay. Okay.
Aqua Boost is a product I made years ago. It's a soil polymer. I'm a little bit nervous talking to gardeners who are interested in natives and using aqua soil. What this does, it holds moisture around the roots. I already know that you're going to be prone to overwatering things. I use this every time I plant. Every time I add something to the soil, I use this. I'll sprinkle some in the bottom of the hole. But what it does is it holds moisture around the roots, and it activates the mycorrhizal colonies that are naturally occurring in your soil. It reactivates those colonies so plants want to root faster. So you got 2 benefits. If you're going to use Aqua Boost, make sure you're disciplined in not watering too much. That's the only advice I can give you. Great product. I use it in all my raised beds, every container I plant, every time I plant. Every year I buy the biggest, I own the garden center. I take home the biggest jar, and I'll use a little bit every time that I plant in my own gardens. Okay, that's what that product is. Again, I put a lot of advice out there. Listen to most of it, but sometimes I put too much out where I can confuse. So just right now, 3 things: mulch, food, root and grow. In fact, I will send you my garden guide. I've got an 8.5 by 11 with the water guide on the back. Tells you how to water. And generally speaking, it'll be good for the natives, and maybe even a little less. So, and when you're watering a lot. You want the entire root to be moistened. But then you want to wait a time to let it dry out. So it's all about frequency. How often should I water a native plant as opposed to an ornamental plant, something non-native? So a non-native plant, you might be watering twice a week, big tree or something. Whereas a native, you might water once a week. So it's all about frequency. How often will I have to irrigate this plant until I get it established? And then what I'll do, like this is probably the most famous of all the drought-hardy plants that are in the mountains. This is Russian sage, okay? This is Little Spire's Russian sage. It's pint size. It only gets this big. It's a dwarfed version. The regular one gets big and it wants to take over. If there's a nuclear holocaust, ants and this plant are the only things that'll be left, okay? So it's one of those, that tough. So it can be a little weedy. So so I tend to myself use the dwarfed varieties. It's less maintenance. But this plant, I purposely water, put it on the irrigation for 1 year, and then I'll take that emitter and I'll bend it back and I'll tape it off. Because I'm a gardener. The plant might need me in the future. I've never once had to go back and water this plant again. 1 year and it just goes by itself. In fact, it's been so wet this summer, this plant literally gets drunk. I mean, it will literally grow up, get so much water, and flop over, drunk with water. It's absolutely stammering in the gardens. So that's one that it benefits from abuse. Talk bad to it. Think bad thoughts. Kick dirt at it. It's happy with that. It's a tough little plant for here. Pretty blue perennial plant.
And can you talk about pruning that back?
I have an entire class on pruning. It'll be in January. We'll cover this one. But in a nutshell, whack on it pretty hard. You don't have to read the directions with this one. I cut mine back. You can see where it was cut back last year. At just above ankle level. I kind of shape it up, so it might be here to somewhere in there, that tall. Okay. Be aggressive. You can't kill this. Also, the other mistake I find with this, especially if you bought let's say a home that's been around for a while, you're moving in, the gardener had it, they put some plants in. This plant is not meant to live forever. It looks good for about 10 years at most, 7, 10 years, and then it just gets mangy, the middle dies out, it kind of gets overgrown, where it really does need to be dug out and replaced. So don't be afraid, gardeners, I'm giving you permission. It's okay, if it has a sliver of life left, it's okay to dig it up and throw it away. It's not a puppy dog, this is a plant. We live in America, and for $14.99, I can have a fresh new plant in there instead of this mangy looking ugly thing that will never come back. It just gets old. It has a lifespan. Okay? One question, then we're moving on to plants, because I know
they have those all over the neighborhood. Are they going to die and look really nasty?
Eventually, in 7 to 10 years, they're going to be...
No, I mean, in the wintertime, are they going
to... are they deciduous?
Yeah.
They are deciduous, yes. They will not die, but just have interesting structure to them, without foliage.
Okay.
So, and no flowers.
Okay.
So, okay. Let's go down the list. So what I did is, I just put some of my favorites together. This is by no means all the plants you put in there. In fact, Ken, why don't I do two things? I've got that handout that I think the extension agent office put together of all the native plants. Let me look at which one's best. We'll decide after class.
Okay.
And then I can give them a planting guide, so we can send that out this week to the class. And maybe, I don't know, have we figured out how to post that to folks on live?
Yeah.
We do.
Just put a link on it.
And then we'll post it on our Facebook page. Give me your email, and I'll send you two things. One, a whole list of all the plants that are of this topic, and then the planting guide. That makes sense? I think that'll help you all with this topic, okay? But let's just go down the line. We'll go down the list of things I've had great luck with. Now, for my own gardens, just to be upfront and honest, I am totally native in the backyard, all these plants. Mainly because we love to entertain. We're entertainment folks. Huge built-in patios, grills, hot tubs, fire pits, you name it. You come over any time of the year, it's comfortable. And we want it to be ready for a party now. Immediately, always look good. But I don't want to put any care in the backyard. It always has to look good by itself. Once a year, I'll go through and prune it. I might deadhead a couple things, and then I'll fertilize. That's all I want to do. All the water is on drip irrigation. It's all computerized. It's pretty, okay? Ponds are back there, waterfalls, birds are everywhere, butterflies. It's pretty. It's been designed for that. But I don't want to care for it. The front yard, the smaller portion, the one you drive by and look and judge me going, I wonder how Ken's gardens are looking. Okay, that's the garden space. That's high touch. And I wanted an area, because I like gardening. But I don't want to garden the entire half acre. I just want to garden this spot. Patio, the containers and the pots, the raised beds. That's where I garden. So I go out in the morning with my coffee and I commune. I watch the hummingbirds and I deadhead my flowers. That's my therapy session. The backyard is expected to be low maintenance. Okay, so I've got two kinds of gardens in my own yard. So I've designed it for me. And so here's some of the plants that I've used. We've already talked about a couple. Let's go over some of the evergreens to start with. Okay, this is a native fir. This grows wild. If you're up in the Bradshaws, Williams Mountains, Mingus, these are growing wild. If you see a plant that looks like a spruce tree, that's this one. This is white fir or conicolor fir. It gets a very fast growing central leader. This will go to the moon. You probably get there eventually. Just climb the branches. Big swooping branches out to 20 feet wide. It is a Christmas tree. Once it gets established, it'll go by itself. Okay? Great little evergreen. It looks innocent now. Do not plant this by your front door. It will take over. It's going to grow as big as your house. Okay, this is out by the back property line, out as a centerpiece in the middle of the yard. That's where you put your fir trees. And firs are different than spruce in that they're really soft. You can hug these. Whereas spruce, they'll bite you. And they got stiff needles to them. The other one that grows wild, I don't know if you can see that. This is Deodar cedar. Can you see that one? Again, fastest growing of all the evergreens. Big central leader. It looks innocent. It looks like it's going to be thin and wispy. Oh no, 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 no. This is going to be solid, 50 foot by 25 feet wide. Big swooping branches, thick. So the mistake I see with that one is people plant it in the front of their yard, and in 5 years you can't see your yard and your house anymore. The landscape's meant to bring out the architecture in your landscape, not to hide it. Now if you're on the main street where every car is coming straight at your house, maybe that's a place. You put this one really at the back corners, kind of blocking the neighbor's Class A RV they've just bought, they're so proud of, they parked it right on your property line. That's where you put that plant, okay? That ugly construction debris, the contractor that lives right next to you, he dumps it right there. That's where you put that plant. It hides it really, really well. Cuts the wind, that kind of stuff. It is drought hardy, not native. There are some cypress and cedars. In fact, this one's native right here. This is Arizona cypress. Can you see that from behind this? Let's move this. This is Arizona cypress. This grows wild. Baghdad, Kirkland, some of the out. In fact, a lot of the junipers you see are not junipers. They're this plant, cypress. The only way I can really tell is the junipers put on a little tiny berry. This one puts on a little tiny cone, which is different. But isn't that pretty? It's got that blue color, so it makes it very drought hardy. No bugs eat it. It's this is probably 20 by 12, realistic size. Again, looks innocent. It will be solid, thick, 12 foot solid. You can't see through it. I mean, children, dogs have been lost in this tree. I mean, it's thick. It's made for privacy screens and windbreaks. That's where we mainly use that. Okay, Arizona cypress. This is a native pinyon pine. Ouch, it's pokey. Only this pinyon pine is, this is the one they harvest the nuts from. So this one will form the pinyon pine nuts in half the time that our native will. And it's less prone to get the scale. There's a pinyon pine scale that gets on our native pinyon pine. This one's hardier, I believe. And it's got a thicker leaf to it, bluer. If I'm going to recommend you planting a pinyon pine, plant this one. So, does well. Then, in the front parking lot, you'll see an evergreen going out kind of as you enter the store to the left-hand side. You see this great big tree, evergreen tree, live oaks. It's related to our native emery oak, only this one doesn't have all the disease and mistletoe issues, that kind of stuff. Again, it's evergreen, leaf to it. If you either like that kind of leaf or you don't. But great hardy plant. Get it started. We care for that tree not. I mean, it gets, I'm surprised it lives. We abuse it. It's terrible how we abuse that tree. It's still gorgeous. It's beautiful. So, okay, we get all the evergreens. Oh, this one. Just because I know I was talking to gardeners, this grows wild up in the Four Corners area. Durango, Colorado. This is a weeping juniper. If you want an ornamental piece, so I have this back behind my pond. It's magnificent. Everyone that comes over goes, "Oh, what is that?" It's one of those plants you kind of go, "I either love it or I hate it." One of the two. But you got to make a decision. It's an emotional thing. Do you like it or do you not? And so I purposely put that behind my pond just to kind of go, "Hey, I'm messing with you." Also in front of this, I have a weeping redwood. Very unusual. Weeping redwoods are columnar and they kind of flow over and do this kind of thing. So it's a piece of art.
Thank you.
It's very low care
Yeah.
and an evergreen. And I treat it just like my other natives in the backyard. So you can have this artistic flair to your gardens and still be native. It doesn't have to be rock with it can be more than rock with one of these in it, okay? That is not a landscape design. That's lazy. I want to travel in RV. I don't want to care about my yard at all. That's not gardening. So I think we can have more interest in that.
Cameron, how big on that? I missed it.
This gets, 20 feet by 12, something like that. Was that the question? How big does that plant get? Okay. Now we got the trees out of the way. And there are more. There's desert willows. In fact, I thought I brought desert willow. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Good eye. Way to go. Chilopsis. You got the botanical on this too?
No.
Yeah.
I have one.
This grows wild out to Dewey, Mayer, kind of Prescott Valley, out that corridor. This grows wild. Baghdad, Skull Valley, all that area. You'll see this growing wild. This is called Timeless Beauty Desert Willow. The Timeless Beauty is a preferred way. If I was going to plant one myself, or I planted some myself, this is the one I use. Because this one is less prone to put the beans on. And so it blooms more frequently, more often. And the flower is a bit brighter than our native. It is native, it's just we've bred the best features out of all of our natives, and then we came up with this one. So go with the Timeless Beauty Desert Willow. This will get up 12 feet by about 12 feet, yeah, maybe 10 feet, something like kind of this big vase-shaped shrub or short tree is what it is. It is deciduous. You see just a very leading edge of some yellow to it. Just barely. Another 2-3 weeks it'll be in full aspen gold. It'll stop blooming. Hummingbirds dearly, dearly love it. It's a great plant for hummingbirds. If you're into birds at all, we are on the migration pattern. So birds come from north to south, south to north, through Prescott. So you will be amazed at the number of varieties of birds you'll see here, even the type of hummingbirds. You'll have some that kind of hang out here. We're starting to see some funky new ones. I'm hearing calls I've never heard before. As they're coming through, they're migrating through, they're seeing the water, they see all my landscape, they go, "Oh, I think I'll rest here for a couple days." It'll be quite interesting if you like all of our feathered friends out in the yard. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Rosemary we've covered. Let's go with this one. You'll see a native grass going into valley areas from Chino Valley, Paulden, Prescott Valley. This is bear grass, like B-E-A-R, bear grass. It's been blooming all around town, grows wild in Prescott. It's the only evergreen grass. All the others are just, they kind of perennials. They die back to the ground, you shave them back and then fertilize them to come back fresh. These you never prune. You just leave them like this. It will get a pretty white flower. Mine have had white flowers on them for 3 months or so. I've just started to cut some of that flower stalk out because it's dry, it's looking kind of crusty, it's bringing me down. And so if you start to bring me down in my garden, you're either getting dug out, cut back, pruned, or forced to be pretty again. One of the two, and so that's what I've done with that. This is not a native, but you know pines grow wild throughout the mountain regions. So all of your pines are going to do very well here. Junipers grow wild throughout the region. So you know all junipers are going to do really, really well here. So this happens to be Mugo pine, It's not native, but it's in one of those I define as really easy care that adapts really, really well for us. I've grown this in pots, in whiskey barrels, in the ground, raised beds. Very versatile. It'll get up about this tall or so and then spreads, kind of a mounding shape. So real pretty up to going up to the front of your house, down the driveway. It's off the edge, it'll take that heat coming off of the asphalt or the concrete you've got. It's a great little plant for you. It looks innocent, slow growing, but evergreen, just looks good. Sometimes you just need 20% of your yard, of your landscape plants, should be evergreens. That's the anchoring. That's what 20% should be spring bloomers. So you got something that looks good in the spring. Your lilacs, forsythia, flowering quince, very drought hardy. They kind of announce spring is here. 20% should be summer bloomers. So just something that when the spring bloomers are all done and nothing but green, you've got something. Your crepe myrtles, your rose of Sharon's, your catalpas, your desert willows, all summer bloomers, chase trees. Then you should have 20% fall color. Just when that change happens, you go, wow, this is pretty, I love this. Preferably with smaller leaves. That way when they get them and they drop, they blow away by themselves. But maples, they're good too. And then 20%, the remaining 20% should be just whatever tickles your fancy, whatever you like, plant that. But you should get that balance right so something always looks good, because we are a 4-season climate, right? Okay. This, oh, we also companion plant this, that brings some up. Let's see, there's a pretty red flower called autumn sage. I think you'll see some as you came up to the greenhouse. That's a companion plant to these. We put them together often. So this is Potentia. The other is autumn sage or Salvia gregii. Comes in reds. I have a new purple variety coming next year. It should be very exciting. But this one grows knee high, knee wide, cute little ball that requires virtually no pruning, very little care, and it blooms from May through till November. It's an amazing bloom cycle. So, and animals don't eat this. So if you're right there where the deer kind of come through, you're smiling. Are animals eating yours? Oh, you gotta be kidding. Generally speaking, they're resistive to animals. Is that better?
The deer got the top of it, but I just bought some of that spray to...
Repels all, did that work?
They haven't come back yet.
Very good. So I'll take that as yes, it worked. So generally they're not going to like this. They'll be very pressure packed. The youngsters might eat it because the parents ate everything else. They don't want to fight for, or the grasses they generally like aren't up yet, so they'll nibble on things they don't like. Or deer, here's how deer work. They have stomach systems like cows. They eat things, and before they realize they don't like it, they've already eaten half the plant. They kind of go, oh yeah, that's right. I should keep moving. I don't like that. And so that's how deer kind of operate.
Is that deciduous?
This is deciduous. Lose its leaves.
Do you trim that?
This one, all I do with this, I trim it very, very little. I'll give it a haircut. So it'll get kind of some wild hairs. I'll just shape it back so it's kind of back to order. And then I'll go from there. Some of you that are hardcore native folks, you don't like that. The nurses, the engineers, the accountants in the room, they love that. They like shaped order, okay? The more artist folks, they like to let it go more wild. Pick the style that works for you and then do that.
How tall is it again?
Only short, knee high.
Okay, can you shut the water off of it after it's established?
I would probably water it. I would keep it on the drip system and water it sporadically. Here's the thing. We have wet cycles and we have dry cycles. If you want your natives to look like our native landscapes, cut them off of all care. And you'll get this real beauty cycle, and then you'll get this dry, crusty cycle, then they'll come back when the monsoons come. I personally like to keep the gaps filled so I keep it looking good all the time. So especially if things bloom, I want to make sure I keep the blooms coming as best I can, especially my natives. So a little more food, a little bit of water, really keeps that flower intact, has more flowers come in, and the color's brighter, the fragrance more. So I kind of keep some things on the drip system. That's one I would keep on, just to keep the flowers going. Otherwise, it's going to stop blooming in June. It's going to get dry and crusty. It's going to suffer. It'll look kind of mangy looking. And then it's right there by my front door where I'm going, why are you looking so mangy? You put them on the drip system, they just takes the edge off. There it is. Junipers, I actually use this quite a bit in my own yard. This is a Gold Coast or Sea of Gold juniper. I find that some folks are paranoid of junipers. They're afraid they might get allergies someday. Okay, now I have allergies to junipers. It's not this guy that's going to cause you grief. It's going to be the huge male alligator junipers that are going to explode in March, and their pollen's like an atomic bomb goes off, and you can see this huge cloud of pollen now migrating across the valleys. That's what's going to get you. We bred the pollen out of the ornamentals, so we're just using the females, or they aren't going to load up with pollen like your big. Don't worry. I'm just giving you permission to use some junipers because they just do so well here. If you're a property investor and you've got renters that you're renting out to, use junipers. They can't kill them. They'll be alive when the next renters come in. So I use a lot of these in my investment properties. So junipers, there's a place for them. This one only gets up, maybe two feet, kind of spreads. And it gives me some gold, some lighter colors against all that dark soil, dark rock, you've got dark areas. Sometimes that bright gold really sparks the landscape up. And they look good with things like, you can put those together, companion plant, treat them the same, and they just look good in the landscape together. Same height. Okay. Point being, junipers, okay. Let's go with two hardcore natives. These guys grow wild, just wild. Oh man, just watered, of course. This is one you'll see growing in the shaded areas underneath the oaks, up in the ridge lines. You'll see this vine growing up the banks. You'll see wild grapes as well, growing wild. This is Virginia creeper, and this is the actual native variety of Virginia creeper that grows here. You'll see a vine very red. I mean, just bright red in the fall. In another 2 to 3 weeks, we're just starting to see it turn. In 2 weeks, this will be blazing red. That's going to be Virginia creeper. Deciduous. It's native. I mean, it'll go by itself. It'll climb up things itself. This is great where you've had that erosion on that bank. You want something to kind of lock in all the soil, the rocks and stuff. If you got great big boulders, you want things to flow through the boulders quickly. Virginia creeper is a great one to go with. Okay. This one is the only native butterfly bush, and it looks like a native. It is a native. This is just a native butterfly bush. Now, normally butterfly bush puts on the ornamental varieties, the ones the more desirable. This has that same kind of flower, more ball shaped. Looks like a Dr. Seuss kind of plant. If you're a hardcore native person, this is your plant. Water it for a year, cut it off of all care, and you're guaranteed to have a pollinating plant out in the yard that'll bring in the butterflies, that'll bloom like this. It's been blooming like this since May. You either like it or you hate it though. So it's great native, super hardy. Where else are we at? Let's go over sedums. So I use a lot of these. These are perennials now. That is, they'll come back every year. This one happens to be an evergreen perennial. This we use in rock gardens. These are sedums. Anytime you see the word sedum, you know it's a good plant for here. We don't grow a lot of cactus. There's really only 2 you can grow here. It's going to be prickly pear. You just see those out, and little hedgehogs. Little tiny cluster of little tiny cactus. Kind of insignificant. They're hard to see. Easy to stumble on. And I guess, okay, cholla. The jumping cactus. The one that actually does try to bite you as you go by. Those are the only 3 that are hardy enough. But sedums act like cactus without the thorns. I mean, they're cute, they're soft, and they get the same kind of fluorescent flower in the spring, and they come in a lot of different colors. This one's called bronze carpet. They come in chartreuse, blues, greens, reds. Have fun with sedums. I've grown this one in a pot, and literally these tendrils grew down, would touch the ground, It was magnificent, evergreen. And I could go on a trip, come back, and the house sitter didn't kill it.
And the
So
javelinas didn't?
javelina can nibble on it sometimes. Generally, they're so aggressive that you'll see them out there, and they're still okay. Okay. This is, whoops, autumn joy sedum. Oh, I broke it. Poor guy. No fragrance, but isn't that pretty? I grow this one not so much that it's hardy. It does fit my gardens. I put it around the pond, but I put this in there for the birds. Early spring, February and March, when this is just starting to come back from the ground, I'll notice my little chickadees, little guys that are, you'll see a swarm of them, 20 birds on one of these plants pecking away at the leaves. They like to eat the leaves as a nutritional source. It's just one of the food, before all their other food is out, they're in after this. So I plant it for my birds, and then once their regular things they like are out, they'll stop eating this, it starts coming back, and mine are starting to bloom. So it makes it look rough for a bit, but it benefits my birds so much. And I'm a hardcore bird gardener. I like the birds.
So what was that called?
This is called Autumn Joy Sedum.
I've had
Quite a few of them down there.
repeatedly cut it to the ground.
That'd be, what's cut it to the ground? That'd be animals can't eat this one. So they can like that one. So deer, javelina,
Smaller animals?
javelina.
Smaller animals.
Oh, could be a pack rat.
Yeah.
Stupid pack rats. You know all rats deserve to die.
Yes.
Yeah, you should kill them. Let me show you these two, because every native garden should have these. This one is echinacea, and this one just reseeds in my yard by itself. I brought this one, it's called Cheyenne Spirit, because usually you see echinaceas or cone flowers. Usually you'll see them in pinks, variations of pink. Very unusual to see this. I knew I was talking to gardeners, and they'll get excited about an unusual color. But there's a lot, all of them do equally as well. This gets up about knee high, a couple feet in my yard, and it reseeds like crazy. Now what I do is, when it's done blooming, I'll snip off the spent flower, so it'll send up a new flower. In the month of October, I will stop doing that. Now I'll let all the remaining seeds, flowers go to seed. And I'll keep those out in my landscape as a food source for my little birds that winter over with me. So you can have beauty and help nature all at the same time. And still I have so many seeds that they come up just naturally in the backyard in places, in the magical places. Actually, if they're in the right place, it's a magical place. If it's in the wrong place, it's a weed. So just kind of pick those out if you need to. This is another one that does the exact same thing. This is Gaillardia. This one's called Trumpet Fair. I should pass that around. Take a close look at that petal. Here, I'll go to the lady side. It's a trumpet series. So the petals are not flat. They're actually in a trumpet shape, which is very, very unusual for a flower. But I've got this one planted across the yard. My experiment gardens, and animals javelina have not eaten this once. So again, the same thing. As this flower gets done, I'll trim that off. And then in the month of October, I'll stop doing that, let it go to seed. It'll be a seed source for my birds. Great perennial up to about maybe 1.5 feet. This one definitely gets taller than this one, so plant them like that. Gaillardia, echinacea.
What's the variety of that echinacea?
It's part of the trumpet series. The exact name is, I don't know, trumpet, Gaillardia. That's the tag came out.
Echinacea one.
Oh, that's Cheyenne Spirit. Cheyenne Spirit. You guys see it live? Okay, a couple others. We'll bring these up. Okay, some that I use at the base of my trees, because I don't think God intended for rock to go right from your yard to the base of a tree or the trunk coming out. That does not look right. As a designer, that does not look, that looks sterile. Looks like I'm gardening on the lunar surface. So what I do is I'll plant underplantings underneath. Where that drip emitter is for my tree, I'll plant some of these. This is heuchera, or coral bells is the common name, coral bells. Comes in a lot of colors. These are both the same. Play with them, have fun with them. But I'll put these at the base where that drip emitter is for my tree. And this is tough enough to take the same water cycle as my tree and keep growing. And it's tough enough to be in full sun when it's new because the tree is small. As the tree grows, starts to shade, it'll even take the shade. Very versatile plant. It does get a little tiny bell-shaped flower that kind of hovers above. That's the floral bell. What you're planting it for is the foliage. The foliage is pretty. Great underplanting. It just is so striking and tough. Not a native, but tough enough to plant with your trees and adapt to the same water cycle as a tree. Perennials typically take more water because they're smaller rooted than a tree does. But this will be that once a week. Water does great. Okay. So some of these I'm just giving you ideas of how to plant. You can adjust those plantings yourself as you'd like. This is, anyone know what this is? Society garlic. Yeah, very, very good. Only this one's variegated. Usually they just have that blue foliage. This one's got that white stripe to it. I use society garlics in my container gardens as a repellent for javelina. Javelina is my nemesis. I get a few deers. I get a lot of pack rats. I kill them. But I'll use this because it does have a garlicky scent to it, but it just blooms so long. It's got great interesting foliage. And then I'll put some pansies or something around the front edge, petunias, flowers in the rest of the container. This would be one of my upright kind of filler kind of container plants.
Does that make it through the winter here?
It will make it through the winter, yes.
You don't have to put frost cloth on it?
Yep. Mine comes back. Might depend on where it's at, but I find in full sun does great. This one, Gara. Gara is a great plant. We sell this in pinks and whites, basically pinks or whites. I put this out by my mailbox. Because, you know, the mailbox can be, you know, it's got all that ankle-breaking rock, rip-rap they call it, out there that you got. Why do we surround our mailboxes with that stuff? I don't know, but it just looks stark. I'm a gardener. That's in my front yard. I want it to look garden-esque. So when you drive by, going, oh, Ken, that guy might own a garden center. I want it to look like that. So this one I put just on the outer edge of the raised bed, just where it barely kind of gets abused. It hardly gets cared for. And it just comes up, it floats about 3 feet above the ground. It has these long floating flowers. It just kind of blows in the breeze. It attracts hummingbirds like crazy. They cannot resist this. They must come see it. So hummingbirds are going to be all over this. It is a perennial. It will die back to the roots. I kind of shave it back, kind of shape it. Sometimes I've run the lawnmower over it. Sometimes I've just weed whacked it. Sometimes I've just sheared it. You can carelessly cut on this, and then it'll come back in the spring again for you. It does this all summer through fall. I've got it growing in a pot. I've got a huge one. It's about this big, growing in this little tiny pot. I'm just surprised. I like to test things to see if it'll grow. If you've got enough vigor to make it through that, that's the kind of plant I like. This Garas, all Garas are really good. Every yard should have at least one. Okay. What else? Oh, here we go. A couple others. This is for my Californians in the group. This is for all my Midwestern folks. This is for my hardcore natives. This is yarrow. Yarrow grows wild. We reseed every wildflower mix kind of gets used. We use yarrow in it quite a bit. This gets up about that tall, just has a beautiful lacy leaf to it, and has yellow flowers that will hover. It's so tough, we're starting to introduce more colors. Paprikas, pure whites, a lot of different colors we're introducing because it's such a great plant for here. This one is cat mint. Cat mint is a great perennial. Again, gophers don't bother this. Pack rats leave it alone. It starts blooming with this covered in blue flowers, usually in April. It'll bloom through May. I'll cut back all the spent flowers. Mine's in full bloom again right now. So it's a great perennial. It will die back to the ground, but it only has a moment when it's really without foliage. It comes right back very, very early in the season. Catmint's a great perennial. They're very tough. And this is one of the only hardy lantanas. There's only one that will be a perennial here. We you get done with that, Doug, you just throw it on the ground, or everyone's just smelling it. It smells like garlic. That's good. This one is the only hardy lantana that will grow here. Needs to be in full sun, but it only comes in one color. We don't have all the other choices because all the others will freeze out in the winter for us. This goes down to 0 degrees. So it's a zone 7 plant. It's the only one that'll take for me. With that being said, I have killed everyone I've planted. Okay, just personally. Because I have a north slope, heavy clay, and I just drown them. They just can't take, they need more aeration. No matter what I do, I seem to, manzanita. I would love, I've tried 5 times. I've had manzanita in my backyard, killed every one. North slope, heavy clay, I overwater things. So they just don't like my backyard. You might be different. That's where you gardener, you would kind of play with it and see if it'll work for you. But if you're from California or Phoenix, my Scottsdale folks, they gotta have lantana. Only plant this one, okay? Because it's the one that'll come back.
And what is it? What is it?
It's a Miss Huff lantana. Miss Huff, H-U-F-F. Okay, 2 more things and we'll take questions. We'll call it all good. How we do? Just over time. We do have gophers. They are going to be in a native garden especially. So we got these gopher shields. If you're in heavy gopher pressure, they make this stainless steel mesh. They cannot get through. So what you do is you dig your hole, you put this in the hole, you plant the root inside of this stainless steel mesh, and then it keeps them from eating through the roots. They can eat the roots out here, but not through this. It really is a game changer. If you've got tremendous gopher pressure, this is a good way to go, good solution. Or I can show you how to kill it. I'm a master. That's the killer of gopher.
So can you get that in long strips? Can you get that in flat strips?
You can't get in flat strips. They call that chicken wire, and you're making your own cages that way. I find we're the do-it-yourself folks. They want shortcuts and ease and things that don't rust out. This is probably the ready off-the-shelf cookie cutter. This is the way to go. So, and it's stainless steel. It doesn't, so much of the chicken wire can rust, but eventually bleeds through and deteriorates. This does not do
There's
that.
nothing to put under the garden because I do have gophers and I want to put in a raised garden, vegetable garden.
There I would put chicken wire, line it. Maybe go a double layer of chicken wire under my raised bed. That way it will keep the gophers from coming up through that. That's kind of how you attach them. Okay. Lastly, let's go over wildflowers because that kind of comes up. I've got an entire class in January, just wildflowers only. How to do it? Let me just tell you that if you want wildflowers, don't just take this seed and chuck it on the ground and expect wildflowers to come up. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, but nature, that's how it works. Nature has 1 billion seed they throw out, not 300, and only 1% comes up. So they can compensate for all that. You want this is like gold, $22.99 for a pound of seed. You want every single seed to come up and germinate. So this one I brought to you just because it's a mix we helped put together. It's called the Arizona Wildflower Mix. It's got all the stuff it's got echinaceas and gaillardias in it. It's a hardy one. You're coming up to the season when you put wildflowers up. It's a bit early. Generally we wait till it gets cold. So after Thanksgiving, really Christmas on through March, that's when you're putting your wildflower seeds out. But be careful of the seed you're using. This is a group that likes wild things, natives. Wildflowers are where our industry takes the most shortcuts, especially at the holidays. They'll have really pretty packaging, and they'll call it wildflower mix, and it'll be a couple poppy seed with vermiculite. It's made to be pretty to get you to buy it, but it's not a good seed mix for here. Really do your homework on which seed you're going to put out in your yard. There's certain mixes. This happens with a little company out of Colorado. This guy is such a plant nerd. He goes out and he collects seed in the wild and then packages them. I don't know how he does that, but this is a great seed that's our mountain mix would do well, called Beauty Beyond Belief. Okay. With that, I'll take a couple questions and then I'll hang out. Oh, Good eye. I was hoping you'd miss that. This is brake light yucca. Now yuccas do great here. And agaves. Did I bring an agave? I didn't, but century plants, when that puts on that great big white flower, we've got those over there. It's a whole lot of other natives. I knew I could only talk for an hour and 15 minutes now, and then people would start, their bums would get a little numb. So, but this is a new variety of yucca. Most of our wild yuccas that are like this, red yuccas, get up pretty tall. And then they have this salmon color kind of flower to it. This one is a dwarf, so this is mature. And it has a brake light red flower. That's the name, brake light yucca. So it's a dwarf variety, and it's a pure red flower. The same flower as our regular yucca, the brighter red and dwarfer variety. This would grow really well in a container, raised bed right there by the door. You've got a southwesterny kind of Mediterranean look. This is a really good plant for here. The mistake I find that people make, especially if they have gardeners that are just letting it do their gardening for them, don't let people cut these back like grass. That drives me crazy. It takes years for them to recover. This is an evergreen. It requires no pruning. Okay, just cut back this dead spent flower. That's all you need to do. Okay, so just kind of watch. They'll want to cut them back in January, and it just brutalizes them. Okay, it's not a grass, it's a yucca. And the other one I had, this is another native. This one's really good. It's kind of pokey. What's the name, specific name on that? This is Yucca scottii, okay. Mountain yucca is a common name. This grows wild. If you want a big yucca, it takes up, it's like a shrub, a big yucca with a great big white flower to it. This is great. It just screams I should be growing in your backyard, native. This one truly is a native, okay? You've got several like that.
What about desert spoon?
Desert spoon, I've got some beauties. You should plant one. Another one that looks kind of like a yucca. I have too many plants over there. The native section is right here. All that.
Trim it?
You don't trim it. You trim back the dead spent flowers, and that's it. It's really low maintenance. The prettiest desert spoon I've ever seen was in Sedona. They had it in front of a merchant shop, a great big pot. They let it grow, and it's filled out perfectly shaped. It's magnificent. So you can have fun with the native forms, and it's in style right now. That's what you're seeing in the designer magazines, or these southwestern kind of plants. Usually they'll have it in a pretty pot or something, or at the front entrance of a door coming up to this $1 million house. They've got yuccas or desert spoons growing right there. It's in style, and we live right here where they grow wild. Have fun with it. Last questions. You guys have been great. Thank you. I'll hang out too. Thank you.